Friend, Shabbat Shalom to everyone. And who's ever watching out there in streaming land, it's nice to have you here as well. I just don't know quite how to talk to the streamers.
Just look them right in the camera.
Is that it?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm not trying to reduce people watching to streamers.
Online view participants. Online participants.
You know, Nathan, why don't you write a song about this?
Okay.
Okay. Friends, over the course of 3,000 years, folk traditions have attached themselves to Judaism. Many Jews have grown up with superstitions, which people confuse with what Judaism really stands for. The core of Jewish superstition is the idea of ayin hara. In Hebrew, it means the evil eye, or demonic cursing. There are all kinds of stories about angels, devils, demons, ghosts, and spirits in Jewish folklore. And even though the Torah explicitly forbids these ideas, folk traditions have held on to them and have passed them on from generation to generation. These traditions have equipped Jews to ward off all kinds of supposed evils using all kinds of tools and amulets and sayings. Their entire library is dealing with this issue. Here are some of them that I'm familiar with from growing up. One of the more well-known Jewish superstitions is to wear a red string on the left wrist to ward off evil. If you go to Israel, you can find on the street people selling these red bands that wards off evil. Do you have one?
I do not.
Okay. I thought you were shaking your head saying, oh yeah, I have one of those.
Well, no, I just recognize it.
You recognize it, okay. In fact, even Michael Cohen, Trump's former lawyer, wore a red band before the House Committee, I'm serious, wore a House Committee on Oversight and Reform. Now, this is something my grandmother would do. There is a custom of poo, poo, poo. Okay, so this is what happens. Jews say poo, poo, poo after receiving good news to make sure the evil eye doesn't spoil a good time. Some people just say poo, poo, poo. Others precede it with kain ayin hara, which means no evil eye. The combination is basically the Jewish version of knocking on wood. Some people combine these three words simply as kanahara, to halt an even eye. You'll hear that a lot. If my mother was sewing something that I was wearing, in other words, I'm missing a button, she didn't want me to take the shirt off, she was sewing it on me, I had to chew on a thread. One explanation for this Baba Maisa, this kind of old wives' tale, is that when someone dies, aren't you glad you came here this evening? There's no one in Kansas City, there's no one in Missouri or Kansas teaching these things tonight. My shoulders are very heavy tonight. So let me go back to this. So why the thread? The thread is burial shrouds are sewn around the remains of a body. By chewing a thread while someone sews their garments, Jews make it clear that they are very much alive and not ready for the angel of death. Strawberry, raspberry, blueberry, or any flavored jam is more than just a tasty gift to bring to a new home. It also serves as a distraction. While guests celebrate a new beginning, demons nosh on sweet jam instead of wreaking havoc. I did not know that tradition, so I learned that as I was preparing for this service this evening. These are folk traditions. Personally, I find them to be very cute, and to a certain extent, they are harmless. However, when you begin to take them seriously, and they guide our behavior, or they're used to explain what happens to us in life, we have a problem. You know, Rabbi Mark Angel, a very distinguished Sephardic Orthodox rabbi, articulates this dilemma, this tension very, very beautifully. He says, Judaism seeks to bring us closer to God through proper thought and deed. Superstition seeks to circumvent God's power through the use of magical formulas or rituals. While Judaism demands intellectual moral excellence and directs relationship with God, superstition provides a purported means of bypassing and manipulating God in order to ward off evil and to achieve some other goal. Now, this is not some theoretical problem. It's something directly related to our Torah portion and the New Reformed Temple. Let me give you a specific example. We are taught in this week's Torah portion the Shema. The Shema, Shema Yisrael, and then V'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha, and Becky and Nathan have created that beautiful setting that we sing every week. But in the paragraph that Becky and Nathan sing, the first paragraph of the Shema, that's in our Torah portion, and that's how we have the Shema, there is the last line of it, you shall inscribe them on the doorpost of your house and on your gates. What are they talking about? They're talking about the mitzvah of the mezuzah. It's a piece of parchment. It's called a cloth, which is held on the doorpost within a protective and decorative case. And it's carefully inscribed by a person called a Sofer Stam, with the specific Hebrew verses from the Torah, Deuteronomy 6, 4 through 9, and then chapter 11, verse 13 through 21. Now, this is an important mitzvah, and we make sure that the writings are to remain intact. There is this tradition associated with it called bodek mezuzot, the checking of the mezuzah in this tradition. The mezuzah that's placed on private property, such as one's home, must be checked twice in 7 years. In other words, every 3.5 years, you're supposed to check it. A synagogue mezuzah is something different. You only have to check it every 50 years, but that's a whole other topic. It all makes good sense because it's like getting your car inspected. But what happens when the tradition becomes irrational and takes on a kind of superstitious quality, evolving fear and illogical thinking? That's true with everything in Judaism. You can take it so far and it's wonderful, then you take it too far, and then it gets to be kind of crazy. Now, this is a horrible event, but it's absolutely true, and I affirmed it by going back into the Hebrew newspaper and verifying it. On May 15, 1974, Arab terrorists infiltrated the Galil, the northern part of Israel, from Lebanon. They burst into a religious school, girls' high school in Ma'alot, high up in the land of Israel, and murdered 19 students before Israeli commandos stormed the school and killed the terrorist. It's a horrible moment in the history of Israel. A few days later, a rabbi announced that he examined the mezuzot on the doorpost throughout the school and found that they were all pisulot, they were unkosher. The implication is this tragedy was caused by unkosher mezuzot. Think about this. Now, this is horrifying. First of all, he was in effect blaming the leadership of the school for the tragedy. Secondly, if the reason 19 high school students were murdered was because of mezuzot that were designed to protect them were invalid, in my business, we need another God. That kind of God makes no sense to me. But it gets worse. There was a student journal that came out with a statement, and I quote, "A kosher mezuzah on your doorpost not only makes your house an abode for godliness, but it also your security measure even after you've left home for the day. And since all Jews are one large body, it increases the security of the entire Jewish nation. Due to the fact that most of the mezuzot in the homes of the hostages upon examination were found to be defective, improperly placed or not on every doorpost, all Jews should check their mezuzah immediately." Just think about this. I mean, there's no malice intended on any of this. But if you think about the mindset, it kind of makes you kind of wonder, especially when those of us the way, like I don't know how you think about God and things. I mean, it's so personal, but I'm sure it kind of resonates, it kind of makes you kind of cringe when you hear this. Now, is this what we want to embrace? You know, it is interesting. Mainline Judaism finds this to be unacceptable. For example, there was a rabbi, an Italian rabbi in the 19th century named Rabbi David Chaim Corondaldi, who stated, if there were persons who believing the mezuzah protects us, they were fools. And then Maimonides, the great sage of our philosophical tradition, says, and I'm translating it as precisely as I can, for these idiots have turned an important mitzvah, made it like some magical amulet whose function is to serve their personal needs, as they tend to think in their foolish thoughts that this mezuzah is a thing that affords them benefit in meaningless worldly things. And Rambam goes on to say, what's the purpose of the mezuzah? The purpose of the mezuzah is that when you enter your home or leave your home or enter the synagogue, our thoughts are to be directed to God. And this thought should immediately restore a person to the right senses and to walk in a path of righteousness. In other words, the mezuzah is a reminder of the kind of lives we want to live and the kind of people we want to be. It's not some magical thing. Okay, so why am I talking about this? Here's the deal. And some of you already know this. You know, we have now this beautiful mezuzah that's on the door of outside of our congregation. And for those of you who were here for the inauguration or opening day on May 1st of our congregation, when we put up the mezuzah, we put up a different one. And it was really beautiful, and I really loved the mezuzah, and the committee that was involved with this went along. So we put it up, and then a day later, it fell down. And this is what's left of it. It crashed. Do you ever wonder what happened to it? Look at this. So in the morning, Sunday, we put it on. By Monday afternoon, it was all in pieces. So here's the deal. If we take what some of these sages were saying seriously, the New Reformed Temple and its members will never recover from this evil. I'm not worried. It broke. It was unfortunate. I picked it up. I took the pieces. I put it in. This is not the mezuzah. This is the mezuzah cover. We put the mezuzah cover away. A beautiful one was bought. We took the parchment, put it back in. Everything is going well. The New Reformed Temple is going well. Thank goodness our members are doing well. What's my point? My point is that we have this beautiful tradition. We have these beautiful symbols. But let's not confuse the symbols with the essence of who we are. Because Judaism, unlike people who are caught up in Jewish superstition, Judaism is a logical faith. It's not a bunch of craziness. Mezuzot are not linked to hocus pocus. They're a beautiful symbol. Rituals are powerful, and I'm very committed, as you know, to ritual life in the synagogue, in my own life, and encouraging in other people's lives. That's the richness of our tradition. We need them. They center us. They ground us. They remind us. They elevate us. But religion is not magic. Superstitions do not protect us from the evil eye. Judaism is a religion of reason. The God of Judaism is a God of reason. God cannot be tricked. Prayer is not voodoo, and ritual is not delusion. Why would we worship such a silly God who would require such craziness? And that is why I find this sentence in our prayer book so important. And when we say it every week, it really touches me. It says, "Source of all knowledge and wisdom, you have endowed us with reason and understanding." Let me read it again. "Source of all knowledge and wisdom, you have endowed us with reason and understanding." In our crazy world, where too many people are entrapped by so many irrational ideas, and I don't need to make a list. You know what they are. let us affirm our Judaism, our religion of reason. Shabbat Shalom.